In the early 2000s, Kings Island debuted its most ambitious attraction yet. Backed by Paramount, they unveiled Tomb Raider the Ride, a massive indoor experience unlike anything the park had attempted before. Guests entered an ancient temple and set out on a mysterious journey surrounded by fire, ice, and towering statues. At its heart was a one-of-a-kind ride, designed to combine cinematic visuals with intense physical thrills. Born out of corporate synergy and designed to push the boundaries of themed entertainment, the attraction's life would be surprisingly short. Join us as we step inside the legend and discover the turbulent story of Tomb Raider the Ride. Kings Island first opened its gates to the public in 1972. Built as a replacement for the aging Coney Island amusement park in Cincinnati, the new park was designed on a much larger scale. From the start, it combined thrill rides, family attractions, and live entertainment, quickly establishing itself as a major regional destination. Its opening years were marked by popular additions such as the Racer wooden coaster and themed areas like Rivertown, solidifying the park's reputation as one of the Midwest's leading amusement parks. Throughout the 1970s, Kings Island continued to grow, adding multiple rides and attractions. The park introduced Kenton's Cove Keelboat Canal in 1973, and later debuted one of its most ambitious projects, the Beast, in 1979, which became the world's longest roller coaster. But in 1984, ownership of the park shifted. Taft Broadcasting, the park's original backer, sold off its amusement holdings, creating a new company known as King's Entertainment Company under a leveraged buyout. With new management, Kings Island kept expanding through the mid and late 1980s. In 1984, the park opened King Cobra, the first ground-up stand-up coaster ever constructed. 3 years later, the Massive Vortex debuted, a record-breaking looping coaster that became one of the park's signature rides. As the decade turned into the 1990s, Kings Island added Adventure Express, a themed mine train coaster that reflected the growing industry trend towards story-driven attractions. These additions helped the park maintain a steady pace of growth and kept it competitive in an increasingly crowded market. But the wider amusement industry was also changing rapidly. By the late 1980s, the theme park business was increasingly dominated by large corporations. Disney, Anheuser-Busch, and Time Warner were driving the industry, and smaller operators like King's Entertainment found themselves competing against companies with far greater resources. At the same time, the studio park concept was rising in popularity. Theme parks tied directly to movie studios, designed as extensions of their brands. Disney opened Disney MGM Studios in Florida in 1989, offering visitors the chance to experience Hollywood-style attractions. Universal, already running a successful studio park in California, launched Universal Studios Florida in 1990. Warner Brothers joined the trend, with Movie World on Australia's Gold Coast in 1991. These new parks changed the industry. They showed that a successful theme park no longer needed the full immersion of a traditional Disneyland-style park. Instead, boxy soundstage buildings and studio facades could serve as the setting, with rides branded to popular films. For movie studios, it was a chance to cross-promote their franchises, while creating an additional revenue stream. For independent park operators like King's Entertainment, it represented a looming threat. By the early 1990s, Kings Island leadership knew they needed a new partner to remain competitive. Internal pressures, shifting industry trends, and the appeal of joining forces with a major media company made the change inevitable. That shift would come in 1992, when Paramount Communications stepped in. Initially as a partner, negotiations would evolve into a full sale. At the end of that season, Kings Island would close under one banner and reopen the next under another, this time as part of the growing wave of movie studio theme parks. In 1993, a new era began at Kings Island. Paramount Communications officially took control, rebranding the park as Paramount's Kings Island. Along with a new logo and fresh signage, the park began weaving movie properties into nearly every corner. The company's motto, "The magic of the movies meets the thrills of a lifetime," signalled a shift in philosophy. Kings Island was no longer just a regional amusement park. It was now a stage for Paramount's films and franchises. That same year saw the opening of the park's first movie-branded attraction, Top Gun. Although the coaster had already been in development before Paramount arrived, the company gave it a cinematic makeover. Designed by Aerodynamics, the suspended coaster welcomed guests with a hangar-style station inspired by the 1986 film. Even the trains carried red striping, reminiscent of the movie's branding, while Danger Zone blasted across the speakers. It was a clear departure from the muted natural theming of earlier decades, and the first step in Paramount reshaping Kings Island's identity. Beyond new rides, existing areas were reimagined to fit the movie theme. Walk-around characters from Star Trek and Top Gun joined the classic Hanna-Barbera mascots. The American Heritage Music Hall became the Paramount Theatre, while the Enchanted Theatre hosted Flintstones Go Holly Rock. Even food venues and shops were tied into the studio's catalogue, from the Wings Diner to the Busy Town Grill. A section of Tower Gardens was converted into the Paramount Story, a miniature Hollywood Walk of Fame, complete with authentic props shipped in from studio warehouses. Everywhere guests turned, the influence of Paramount's film library was visible. By the late 1990s, Paramount wanted to go further. The company sought to re-energise a quiet section of the park, Adventure Village, and turn it into something more dynamic. The result was the Paramount Action Zone, a new land that opened in 1999. Styled after a backlot set, the Action Zone presented guests as extras in an action movie, complete with impromptu stunt shows around a replica studio water tower. Its debut came with two new headline attractions. Face Off, a Vekoma inverted boomerang, put riders face to face with each other while looping forward and backward. Alongside it rose Drop Zone Stunt Tower, a record-breaking Intamin gyro drop that stood 315 feet tall, at the time the tallest free-fall ride in the world. Older attractions in the area were also given movie tie-ins. The Amazon Falls Shoot the Chute became Congo Falls, themed to the 1995 film. Even King Cobra and Top Gun received new paint jobs to match the bright, bold colours of the Action Zone. It was one of the largest single expansions in park history and cemented Paramount's movie-focused approach. The transformation continued into 2000, when Paramount debuted a sequel to the park's most famous ride. Billed as the world's first wooden hypercoaster, Son of Beast opened as the tallest, fastest and only looping wooden coaster ever built. Like many movie sequels, however, it failed to live up to the original. Technical issues, rough rides and safety incidents plagued the attraction throughout its short life. But its debut showed just how far Paramount was willing to go. By the turn of the millennium, Paramount had fully reshaped Kings Island. What had once been a traditional amusement park with regional theming was now branded from top to bottom with movie tie-ins. From action-packed thrill rides to live shows and dining, every corner of the park carried the studio's stamp. And Kings Island showed no signs of slowing down. The park was preparing to unveil its most ambitious attraction yet, one that would plunge guests deep into the world of a blockbuster adventure. By the early 2000s, Paramount had reshaped Kings Island into a movie-driven park. But for all their efforts, one obstacle remained. Paramount's film library wasn't always theme park friendly. The studio had turned out award-winning dramas like Braveheart and Forrest Gump in the 1990s. Critical hits, but hardly the kind of properties that transitioned into thrill rides. The park's creative team wanted something featuring action and adventure. That opportunity came with the 2001 release of Lara Croft Tomb Raider. The film was the latest installment in a franchise that began with the original video game in 1996. Starring Angelina Jolie as the daring archaeologist Lara Croft, Tomb Raider offered all the ingredients of a theme park attraction: exotic settings, supernatural mysteries, and pulse-pounding action. While the film itself earned mixed reviews, it was a box office success, and for Paramount Parks, it looked like the perfect vehicle for their next big project. Development began even before the movie hit cinemas. Designers gained behind-the-scenes access to the production itself, visiting sets and studying environments the filmmakers had built. Paramount even arranged to ship props and set pieces across the Atlantic, following production in England, ensuring the attraction would capture the look and feel of the film itself. With the story foundation in place, the team turned to the ride system. Rather than invent something from scratch, they chose to build on existing technology. The idea was to take a reliable, proven thrill ride and push it further with cinematic storytelling. Initially, the attraction was planned for an outdoor setting, but moving indoors created far greater possibilities. Inside a vast show building, the team could plunge riders into darkness, surround them with special effects, and bring them face to face with environments straight out of the film. The location for the attraction was selected out of both practicality and necessity. At the end of the 2000 season, Kenton's Cove Keelboat Canal, a flume ride dating back to the 1970s, was closed and dismantled. The cleared plot provided enough room for the enormous ride building Tomb Raider would require. Though the massive structure clashed with the rustic theme of Rivertown, it was one of the few places in the park with space to accommodate it. All these decisions built towards what Paramount envisaged as its most ambitious attraction yet. A ride that would fuse Hollywood spectacle with immersive thrills. And in 2001, guests finally got their first hint at what was coming. On June 2, 2001, Paramount's Kings Island finally lifted the curtain on its next big adventure. Standing before reporters and invited guests, General Manager Tim Fisher promised that the park's 30th anniversary would be marked by its most ambitious project yet. The park announced Tomb Raider the Ride, billed as a heavily themed, totally immersive dark ride adventure that would, in their words, change the face of thrill ride history. But despite the bold claim, one key detail remained absent: the ride system itself. In keeping with the mystique of the Tomb Raider brand, Kings Island revealed very little about the mechanics of the attraction. Instead, they focused on building intrigue. A teaser description painted a picture of guests venturing into an ancient temple, navigating foreboding chambers, and narrowly escaping calamity in a sequence that would draw inspiration from the film's mysterious tombs. Visitors would be thrust into an epic clash of fire and ice, soaring past razor-sharp stalactites before plunging towards pits of boiling lava. Kings Island unveiled an impressive centrepiece at one end of its royal fountains, a towering six-armed statue of the goddess Brahma, imported directly from the London film set. Alongside it were sinister stone monkey idols, also taken from the production. These props weren't just promotional teasers, they were promises of what awaited guests inside the attraction. The announcement marked the beginning of a carefully staged marketing campaign. With construction already underway, the park began releasing periodic updates to keep the public's anticipation high. Each press release and photo hinted at something new. From glimpses of the temple-like facade to cryptic descriptions of chambers deep within the tomb. One update teased the discovery of a foreboding cave entrance in Rivertown. Another invited readers to imagine descending through twisting corridors into the antechamber, where torches flickered, stone monkeys stood guard, and the chanting of ancient voices echoed through the darkness. By keeping the exact ride system secret, while feeding a steady stream of atmospheric details, Paramount transformed Tomb Raider the Ride into a mystery attraction, one that captivated fans and fueled speculation. Kings Island promised that the attraction would be nothing short of revolutionary, and as its opening day drew closer, anticipation was building. On April 5, 2002, Kings Island officially unveiled its newest attraction, Tomb Raider the Ride. From the outside, The ride didn't look like a typical thrill machine. Guests weren't staring at a tangled mess of track or a towering steel structure. Instead, they were drawn toward an ancient cave with a carved stone facade flanked by flaming pedestals and anchored by a Land Rover Defender from the film. To many, it felt less like entering a ride and more like stepping into a film set. The sense of mystery only deepened once inside. Guests navigated catwalks suspended above broken artifacts and excavation rubble, passing under bamboo supports that appeared hastily erected to hold up a collapsing ceiling. Dim lanterns flickered against stone carvings and statues, while a moody soundtrack set the tone. Eventually, groups of nearly 80 guests at a time were funneled into a large chamber lined with towering monkey warrior statues. As the music swelled, fog crept into the room, and it appeared as the statues might come alive. Just when escape seemed impossible, grinding gears and tumbling stone revealed a hidden carving of the Triangle of Light. With a burst of light and sound, an enormous stone door slowly slid open, leading deeper into the temple. On the other side was the Brahma Shrine, centered around a massive statue taken directly from the Tomb Raider film. A large screen rose from the altar and played a short pre-show, blending clips from the Tomb Raider film. The sequence introduced the legend of the Triangle of Light, an ancient relic said to hold the power to control time itself. Themed narration, projection effects, and atmospheric sound built the story, until at last an entire wall rumbled open to reveal the final chamber, the heart of the temple. Here, the ride vehicle itself came into view, a massive gondola holding more than 70 riders at once. Guests crossed narrow bridges to reach their seats, pulling down heavy shoulder harnesses. With fog swirling and excavation lights casting shadows across the walls, the bridges retracted, sealing everyone inside. For many, this was the moment it finally sunk in. There was no turning back. The ride began slowly, swinging upward into the darkness. As the chamber was revealed, guests came face to face with the towering carving of Shiva, whose glowing eyes scanned the gondola. With a sudden jolt, the vehicle flipped, dangling riders helplessly beneath a ceiling of jagged stalactites. Water dripped down from above, then without warning, the gondola released, swinging down toward a pit of bubbling lava. Fountains of steam and flame shot upward in sync with the booming soundtrack, narrowly avoiding the plunging riders. Still, the ride continued, sweeping arcs, violent flips, and dramatic pauses, all synchronized with fire, fog, and special effects. At one point, the god seemed to awaken in fury, his fiery eyes flashing as the entire chamber erupted with light and sound. The climax built to a face-first plunge toward the volcanic lava pit. Riders suspended as glowing eruptions leapt up to meet them. Just before impact, the gondola released again, flipping wildly as the chamber filled with smoke and the god's laughter echoed throughout the cavern. Finally, with one last blast of fog, the chamber fell silent. The gondola slowed, locking back into its upright position, as the bridges descended once again. It began as an archaeological expedition, but quickly drew guests into the heart of the movie, where reality gave way to a special effects spectacle. Reviews from opening week described it as completely surprising, a bad hair day in the best possible way, and an attraction that feels like stepping into a movie. Guests who didn't care for roller coasters praised it as an alternative thrill. Intense, immersive, and unlike the towering wooden or steel giants elsewhere in the park. Even skeptical Tomb Raider fans admitted that the elaborate theming and special effects gave the ride more weight than a standard flat ride ever could. But while riders knew they had just survived a cinematic adventure, most still had no idea what kind of ride they had actually been on. Behind the fire, fog, and fanfare, Tomb Raider the ride was built around something few expected. What many riders didn't realise as they staggered out of the temple was that Tomb Raider the ride wasn't powered by some never-before-seen ride system. At its core was a variation of a flat ride that had been thrilling guests at European fairs since the early 1990s, the Huss Top Spin. The Top Spin is a simple but effective thrill machine. Riders are strapped into a large gondola, suspended between two counterweighted arms. As the arms rotate, the gondola is released and locked at key points, producing a mix of flips, spins, and weightless moments. In its standard form, a top spin seats around 40 passengers and rises about 50 feet in the air. But Kings Island's version was something else entirely. Tomb Raider the ride was the world's first and only Huss giant top spin. This larger custom-built model carried 77 riders at once and towered 80 feet high, nearly doubling the capacity and scale of its counterparts. The size alone gave it more momentum and more flexibility, allowing for extended descent, rapid flips, and moments of suspense, as riders hung face down over fire, fog, and lava. Paramount had taken a familiar fairground ride and completely reinvented it. Hidden inside the massive temple show building, riders never saw the arms or mechanics until the moment the gondola lurched into motion. Instead, they were surrounded by projection, fire effects, and music, designed by Techniflex, Weber Group, and Visual Terrain. The result blended the line between a flat ride and a full theatrical experience, something most guests couldn't even begin to describe once they stepped back outside. But for all its excitement, the giant top spin came with problems. As ride's maintenance manager Ed Dangler later admitted, the machine was just underpowered electrically. Getting the gondola moving wasn't the issue, it was stopping it mid-cycle and starting it again with the precision needed for the show. Technicians often spent late nights trying to make the ride perform exactly as intended. Still, when it opened with the rest of Kings Island on April 5, 2002, Tomb Raider the ride stood as a one-of-a-kind creation. No other park in the world had a giant top spin, and no other top spin had ever been paired with such an immersive special effects experience. Tomb Raider the ride wasn't alone in Paramount's amusement park chain. King's Dominion in Virginia and Canada's Wonderland both received their own Tomb Raider attractions, though each took a different approach to the franchise. At King's Dominion, Tomb Raider Firefall opened in 2005 as a suspended top spin, a smaller, more open variant of the ride that had debuted at Kings Island 3 years earlier. Unlike the indoor giant top spin at Kings Island, Firefall took place in an outdoor setting, giving riders views of the surrounding Congo section. Despite being less elaborate, the ride retained much of the film's dramatic flair, including the monkey warrior statues and even water, fire, and smoke effects. It offered a thrilling, if slightly pared down, version of the Tomb Raider experience, showing that the franchise could still captivate guests without the massive scale. Meanwhile, Canada's Wonderland received a very different take. Opening in 2005 as Tomb Raider the Ride, this version was a compact flying roller coaster manufactured by Zamperla. The queue and station were themed, evoking the tombs and temples of Lara Croft's world. Complete with stone soldiers, murals of deities, flame torches, and ambient sounds. Together, these attractions illustrated Paramount's commitment to the Tomb Raider brand. While Kings Island boasted the only giant top spin ever built, its sister rides showed that the franchise could be adapted to different scales and formats, from a visually immersive outdoor top spin to a compact, intense roller coaster. It was a franchise too strong to pass up, and for a few years, fans could experience Lara Croft's thrills in multiple parks across North America. When Cedar Fair purchased the Paramount Parks in 2006 for $1.24 billion, it marked the end of an era. Paramount had leaned heavily into movie branding, filling their parks with rides tied to action films and popular franchises. But Cedar Fair didn't share that vision. Paramount was a studio-based theme park, and I never bought into that philosophy, admitted Rob Decker, who helped oversee the transition. To him, the movie tie-ins felt like marketing gimmicks that had run their course. After the 2007 season, Cedar Fair began stripping the parks of nearly every Paramount reference. At Kings Island, the Paramount Theatre was renamed the Kings Island Theatre. Top Gun became Flight Deck, and the Italian Job stunt track became Backlot Stunt Coaster. Even food venues lost their Hollywood theming. But while most of these changes were as simple as peeling off a few logos, one attraction posed a unique challenge. Tomb Raider the ride was too closely tied to its film's source material. From its cavernous queue lined with monkey statues, to the massive statue of Shiva and the iconic vault door pre-show, everything linked back to the film that had inspired it. Cedar Fair couldn't just rename it. In 2008, the ride was rebranded the Crypt, and in the process, it lost much of what had made it so distinctive. The elaborate pre-show was scrapped. The giant door separating the queue from the ride chamber was left permanently open, removing the air of mystery. Statues were painted over, and most of the original theming was draped in camouflage netting. Even the ride's dramatic soundtrack was replaced with pulsing techno music. A lone bat animatronic sat in the pre-show room, awkwardly flapping its wings, serving as the ride's only new showpiece. What had once felt cinematic and immersive now felt lackluster and disjointed. But while the theming was gutted, the ride itself was marketed as more thrilling. One of the gondola's 3 seating rows was removed, cutting the capacity by nearly a third, but also reducing the gondola's weight. This allowed for a far more aggressive ride cycle, 9 dizzying inversions in near total darkness. The extreme programme didn't last long. By mid-2009, the Crypt's ride cycle was dialed back to just 2 inversions, half as many as Tomb Raider had originally offered. Insiders claimed the giant topspin simply couldn't sustain the intense cycle without constant maintenance issues. The toned-down programme felt like a letdown, especially when compared to the special effects-filled original. Cedar Fair didn't give up entirely. Over the following years, they experimented with bringing some atmosphere back. The techno soundtrack was replaced with jungle drums, and eventually music from the film Inception. New effects were added, and some theatrical lighting returned, but without its cinematic story or iconic theming, the Crypt never recaptured the impact of Tomb Raider. And all the while, the landscape around it was changing. In 2009, Diamondback, a massive B&M hypercoaster, opened right over the attraction's entrance. The once secluded jungle setting was removed, leaving the Crypt's show building exposed. By the early 2010s, it was clear that the Crypt was struggling. What had once been one of the most ambitious flat rides in the world had been reduced to a stripped-down thrill ride with a neutered cycle and dwindling appeal. After nearly a decade of operation, the Crypt quietly gave its last rides on October 30th, 2011. By January 20th, 2012, the attraction had been removed from the park's website, and officials soon confirmed that it would not reopen. The ride was retired due to the challenges of maintenance and operational demands, and the space was slated to be transformed into a new Halloween haunt experience. Though the giant topspin was supposed to be an upgrade to the model, its maintenance demands and aging components had taken their toll. The ride's $20 million price tag and complex machinery had not guaranteed longevity. In fact, the Crypt remained the only giant topspin ever sold by Huss. Rather than demolish the massive show building, Kings Island repurposed it for Halloween haunt. The cavernous interior, including the antechamber, warrior room and ride chamber, was converted into Madame Fatale's Cavern of Terror, a seasonal walk-through haunted house themed as a museum of oddities. Many of the original props and set pieces remained in place, hidden in darkness, giving guests glimpses of the tomb that once framed Lara Croft's adventure. The queue structures and even portions of the ride chamber persisted, now serving as part of the haunted attraction. The closure of the Crypt marked another high-profile loss for Kings Island, following the earlier demise of Son of Beast. Both rides had represented ambitious, expensive projects, and both failed to survive their first decade. Yet despite its removal as a thrill ride, the building itself continued to stand, a reminder of the ambition of Paramount-era attractions. Even years later, the former tomb remains in Rivertown, dormant for most of the year, to be used only during haunt. Kings Island has always been a park defined by ambition. From its beginning in 1972, it set out to be more than just another amusement park, combining thrilling coasters, family attractions, and immersive themed areas. Over the decades, the park consistently evolved, chasing innovation from the Beast World Records to the studio-inspired adventures under Paramount's ownership. Each era brought its own unique attractions. Tomb Raider the ride embodied that ambition like no other. It wasn't just a ride, it was a cinematic journey, a blend of spectacle and storytelling on a groundbreaking scale. Guests weren't simply riding a ride, they were stepping into a temple, surrounded by fire, fog and mystery. For a brief moment, it felt like Kings Island had captured something truly unique. The magic of film and the thrill of motion, all combined with immersive design. Yet ambition has its limits. Paramount's vision collided with the realities of maintenance, operational demands, and a changing industry. The ride was rebranded, stripped of much of what made it special, and eventually removed altogether. Kings Island's history is full of these moments. Rides that dared to dream bigger than any park had before. Some thrived, some failed, and some vanished entirely. Tomb Raider the ride was one of those, a testament to what happens when ambition and imagination collide.